to sort of have my own take on this. This is the gameplay trailer, or gameplay reveal, of Halo Infinite. Now, again, a lot of people have been covering this, a lot of people have been going through it, but I want to give my take on it regardless. So, I'm going to be going through the trailer with the sound off, but I'm going to be talking about things that I see, maybe things I want to point out. I don't know, we're going to see what happens. And I'm going to be going back, I'm going to be going forward, I'm going to be pointing things out, what I see, and maybe nerding out on a couple things. So I'm going to start off here with the actual screen to start the demo. First thing I notice is the graphical issues. I think it's been done to death by now. Okay, let's get it out of our system. There it is. Yeah, those trees don't look all that hot. That grass doesn't look all that hot. However, I am really interested in this ring here. These rings have sort of been at the forefront of the game ever since we got that first reveal, all the way back when we had the engine demo. So these rings are central. And while they are stone, I think it's very interesting to point out that on the interior of the rings themselves here, you can see metallic, well, not metallic, you can see a metal inlining, almost like the ring is built around it in a way. So you have the natural looking things, but a technological underpinning. And I think that's you can apply that to the Halo rings in general. Now, this is a portal of some sort. It looks like it. It could be a terminus. It really could be. And as we start the gameplay there, you can see that it's going to start doing particle effect and stuff like this. Now, press start the menu button to start the demo. I think this implies that we could eventually get this ourselves. We could explore a little bit. We might even get the full mission as a way to do things. Now, as I am aware, the mission that we see in the gameplay reveal takes place roughly halfway through the campaign, which is somewhat similar to how Silent Cartographer was right in the middle of Halo Combat Evolved's campaign. Now, what is also neat is we get to see some wildlife. Right here, these little bird things that are strutting around. And that's really cool because I think we were sold ever since the very first gameplay of Combat Evolved. In the very first E3 trailer we had wildlife walking around. So that's really cool to actually see some living, breathing animals on the ring. And something that's a little bit hand designed, not like No Man's Sky. Okay, so let's take a look at this. May 28th, 2560, 167 days after we lost. Now, there's a lot of people that have been going in and trying to dissect this. And there's some people that are saying that the dates have been revised. In the when we see Chief being picked up in the last trailer, we can see in that trailer the date of, I believe it was 2561, that shows the armor BIOS upgrade. So it's possible that things might have been changed around, timelines have been revised. It's just a little minor thing. So I do like the look of the pilot here, and I think we have a lot of confirmation based on the character of the guy, how he's supposed to be something of a foil to the Master Chief. So he's just like a regular dude. So I'm going to be going backwards every now and again. I'm going too far back. But he's supposed to be like a foil to the Chief. He's supposed to be a regular dude that is trying to come to terms with the situation that he's in. We saw at the very beginning, he's just a guy. He wants to go home. He just wants to see his wife and kids. So him being forced into this situation to fight is something that I guess is going to cause some sort of juxtaposition between him and the Chief. They're like foils of one another. The Chief is confident. He wants to fight. He wants to go in. And he wants to do his job because that's what he does. That's what he was made to do ever since he was a kid. And we have this pilot who grew up in a relatively normal life, I would imagine, if you call growing up during a Total War scenario to be a normal upbringing, but he had time to have a wife and a kid, so I guess that it's a relatively normal as we would understand it, and he just wants to go home. So, we have our reveal of the Banished Gun Turrets. Now, I wanted to address all these structures here. Now, very many people have already pointed out the flat look of things. Yeah, there is actually a metal texture on it. There is actually a Metal Forerunner metal texture, but you oftentimes don't see it, especially at this distance. It definitely looks like that this area is trying to mirror volcanic basalt. If you take a look at basaltic columns, or basalt columns, I don't know if it's basaltic, but if you'll take a look at those, they have very, very similar looks. They're hexagonal, and they have columns. They're actually very interesting to see how a natural formation can have such a geometric shape to them in nature. So we have the gun turret that's there that looks like it has a muzzle brake. It's blowing a lot of the propellant off to the side, which means it's probably not plasma that it's shooting, or a projectile of some sort, like a flak projectile. And I actually want to take a look at the ring behind it. Yeah, there are some cruddy textures on that sort of thing, but it's very interesting to see that the damage has been sectioned off around the back here. I think we saw in Halo Wars 2, where a lot of the damage could be sectioned off, compartmentalized. Some pieces can be dropped, and some pieces can be repaired altogether. And since this is Zeta Halo, we're pretty sure it's Zeta Halo, it's not the first time that this ring has shed a lot of its pieces to keep its structural integrity intact. And it's cool that they're just floating out there in space, like it's the ring systems are still keeping parts of it in there. So I'm wondering if we're going to go from island to island like a section as the story progresses, if we're going to go further up the ring. We do have some indication that the missions are perhaps going to be confined to small islands. Okay, so as it goes on, also in the trailer, in the voice trailer, there is, well, with sound enabled, there is a male voice for the dropship. I mean, that was interesting for me, and I knew that ever since the last trailer, but I guess I'm just so used to the female British voices in a lot of aircraft that tell you whenever something's going wrong. Okay, so that's a direct hit. That is a direct hit. They should be dead. Unless that munition exploded pretty early. So, alright, they're going down. This nice detailed interior of the Pelican. So that's a second impact. They're dead again. And the pilot announces that they're going to be going to an emergency landing. I do like the fact that it's using like one shot. Like one camera angle. If we go back a little bit, you can see that the camera itself, I'm actually going to slow this down a little bit. Actually, I don't even need to. You can see it as it plays. It's like the camera is using one basic tracking shot the whole time. It's actually really well done. It reminds me in a couple of rare movies where you see that sort of thing, where the camera just doesn't cut between the characters, it just tracks. Okay, so actually, that's cool here. You can actually see a little bit of the Pelican on the outside, so I'm going to track it back just a little bit further. We're actually going to get a view of that. That's actually pretty aerodynamic, the way that they designed this particular Pelican down there. It's obviously not the one you crash into, obviously. Noticing, yeah, there's some lack of shadows. There are some lack of shadows, like this little piece of debris over near the left-hand side of the cockpit. But I do like that Pelican design, though. It doesn't seem to, it looks like it still has the air intakes on the top of it. It's got the streamlined back of it. It almost seems like it's very much more suited for space travel, as well as entering an atmosphere as it is an aircraft. It takes some design aspects from the 343 Pelican model, but given what I'm seeing, it's a good middle ground. I like that. I want to see like a more detailed level of design in the Pelican. If we can get like a nice full res picture of that, I'd love that. Okay, so he's putting down an emergency landing, so he has one crash, and there's another. And surprisingly, I mean, not the first crash that Chief has been in, and very many crashes, but one of the few that has a human survivor, which is very much unusual for the Chief. He just seems to have the touch of death wherever he goes. So there's a nice little scene here where like he has some sort of anger with the Chief, saying like, "Oh, you don't get to tell me what to do," and all that. Or I've gone through too much every time you're around here. There seems to be something wrong that's happening. It's completely understandable. I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. If you were in this guy's scenario here, and you have the jolly green giant that waltzes into your cockpit and saying, "Take me somewhere," the logical conclusion should be, I'm likely going to die. Because Spartans are only sent into high-risk situations. And if the Chief was sent here as part of the Infinity's crew, or as part of an order to go here, then it's likely that he knew there was going to be some heavy fighting involved. I mean, that's probably what he was doing out there in the debris field in the first place. He was probably ordered there along with the Infinity, and whatever caught them by surprise likely killed the whole ship. Likely killed the whole ship at that point, if what we see later is any indication. That either Infinity is completely dead or heavily damaged, and a good portion of her crew has been killed in some sort of attack. But yeah, the pilot is definitely completely justified in thinking that, oh, you know what, we should just go home. But to the Chief, this is home. To the Master Chief, the battlefield is his home. So he's completely comfortable in this scenario. And I like this where he complains about it and the Chief is saying basically, I count 3 anti-aircraft batteries. That is entirely a very Chief thing to say. I like this armor too. I like this armor, and like in the freeze frames, you can see some of the paint's missing. There hasn't been a whole lot of dinged up nature to it, but like this armor is supposed to be completely brand new, the Mangler exosuit. So it's already starting to get a little bit of wear and tear. Maybe a little bit of bleaching from being out in space for God knows how long. Who knows how long the Mangler can actually keep them in hibernation for if they just showed up. I like it. Maybe a couple more scratches and stuff like that, or maybe like a ding or two, but there's definitely a little bit of wear and tear on it already. I like the undersuit design as well. Once again, our boy is saying, oh, no, this is not good. And he's, actually, I didn't even see the pistol on his belt. Not his belt, or on his thigh piece there. So I'm wondering if we're going to be returning to like the Halo 2 style of having the weapons that you have already on the in the cutscenes inside of the character model, on the character model. So this is actually a really nice, very nice thing there. So we would have gotten like a bit of more of a look already. So like, can I get just a little bit closer? Nah, that's probably as good as we're going to get. So it looks like it ejects to the right hand side, obviously. I'll go into that a little bit later. We have a little bit of the grappling hook there. Again, that's really nice. Also, digging that redesigned UNSC patch there. It's got some hints of the original that we saw pre-war, but also a little bit of flair that they decided to put in as well. It's a bit more iconic than the other one. It's okay. I like the post-war one they had in Halo 4 and Halo 5, but this is a good one too. I actually like this one better, personally speaking. So these two are going to go off on it together, and for some reason the pilot thinks he wants to throw his weight around to a Spartan. Okay, whatever, dude. I get it. You just survived an emergency landing, a pretty harsh one too, but you know who you're talking for. You gotta respect. Oh, there's that little ration patch back there in his thing, or maybe some dressing. That's a nice little touch there. It's just nice. This is nice, actually. You got like a little bit of like a camel pack looking thing there, or a flotation device for landing in water. You got a little bit of armor plating there on it. This is a nice little design for it. I like the flight suit. So there's some nice texturing there. I like the little metal, the little spackling there of paint. So we have the exterior opening up. Oh, I gotta take a look at this. Oh, look at that. Look at the detailing. That's really nice. Even though one of the things I have issue with in a lot of science fiction games that there's a lot of unnecessary details on guns, it's okay too. I can see that it's still as mechanically as confusing as ever, but then again, that's par for the course for Halo. I know that, and I'm going to do like a little bit of a self-plug where I did a little personal design of what I think a more mechanically plausible Halo assault rifle would look like, and I'll put that up there right now. That's my own little self-plug for the video. It's very clean. It's very segmented. It's not a whole lot of unnecessary detail. They definitely walked it back from the Halo 5 design there. Like, it's much less mechanically busy. I like that. Look at that. It's don't talk to me or my son ever again. He looks like a child compared to this super soldier. Look at that. So the pilot makes reference to a Condor that's crashed there, and like a Condor is of course the crashed well, it's with the super dropship, the super Pelican that we saw in Halo Nightfall. So they're definitely keeping some aspects of the 343 universe, and I thought the aspect of a heavy dropship to be a very neat idea, especially one that's slip space capable. I don't know how I feel about that, how every other spacecraft seems to have some sort of fast and light capability or trans-light capability and all that. So you're straying a little bit into the Star Wars, but I can sort of be okay with it. Maybe it's a crappy slip space drive. Maybe that's what it is. So the pilot knows his place and goes back to the cockpit. That's a very nice shot. That's a great shot. I love that. I like the 117 there on his armor. And especially if there are going to be more Spartans in here, this definitely distinguishes the Chief. I mean, it's iconic anyway, but it's pretty good. This is a great shot. I love this shot right here. All right, and so the camera whips around. Our one-shot camera thing is complete, and we go into the gameplay. So the Chief brings up the MA40, and we're gonna get into the sunlight here. But I actually have to talk about it right now, as we have the 36 rounds in the magazine, 108 in reserve, which actually seems kind of low for assault rifle. So we still have a compass that's on there. It seems to be that Chief is facing west on a Halo, which means that the arrow is likely pointing to an orbiting gas giant of some sort, or a larger mass of a planet. I don't think it is. I think that in the end of Halo 5 we saw that Installation 07, if that's what it was at the end of the legendary ending, was orbiting a large terrestrial planet. And this is a great detail. If you look underneath the ammunition counter, you can see that it seems to be identifying the Spartan S117. So that's really, really neat, actually. A nice little detail that seems that the weapon has some sort of biometric capability where it can recognize who's holding it. So I'm wondering, in multiplayer, is that still going to be there? Because that's a very conscious detail. Where it would be really, really neat if it had the player's handle on it. Where it has the player's handle of who's on there. Like my personal one since Halo 3 has been F36. Since the original Halo 3, that's what it's been. So it would be nice if there is some sort of identification for that. Okay, so yeah, this is very plasticky, very clean and all that. My first thought when I saw this was it seems to have a similar sort of sheen and design to a Mark 17. That's what I thought when I looked at it. It does seem very, very clean. So it's possible that textures may be applied to it, so we're going to have to see. So that's what I was talking about up here in the corner. So on the basalt formations, yeah, you can definitely see that there is some Forerunner metal texturing on the side of it. Now, because of the lighting, because the indirect lighting, you don't really see it in a lot of the other things here. You don't really see it in a lot of the other faces. Also, it seems that it's very difficult to tell if there is an individual column that's there. So it's not very easy to differentiate. It looks like a solid mass on the bottom. So that's something that I believe really needs to be fit. Well, I mean, it's not entirely necessary, but I think letting the textures be more visible, like this is what it should be over here on the sunlight. That's good. I like that. It's like, did you notice that there aren't really a whole lot of floaty bits so far on this sort of thing? No floaty bits, no columns, no nothing like that, like we've seen in Halo 4 or Halo 5 so far for that matter. And I like the floaty bits because they've actually been around since Halo 1, if you take a look at the concept art. So we get a lot of wildlife. We're really being sold that this is a truly living place, a truly vibrant place. So we have like these little rat things, these tapir looking things that are running around. They have like little snouts. And around this time the chief gets weapons fire from the grunts, and we have the firing on the grunts. Now I personally like the sound of the assault rifle. I know that some people don't, but since I've been more into actually looking into firearms and stuff like that, I thought it was really neat to see like a nice staccato burst from the gun. This is a nice little detail too, where if the lighting is on the ammunition counter, you can see a little bit of grime on there. It's more notable in direct sunlight, but you can definitely see it right here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like there is a little dot that mentions headshot kill. That's what I'm assuming it is, this little dot here, because it doesn't seem to appear usually. So there are hit markers. Naturally, everybody has hit markers nowadays. That doesn't really break my back. As long as there's an option to really remove them, I think that's a pretty good way to keep both sides happy. But this is what I'm assuming, is that there is headshot damage. Now let's take another closer look at these grunts here exactly. Now, and I apologize if this video is going to ramble on, but I'm going to have a very in-depth look of everything here. That's just what I want to do. This is what I wanted to do ever since the gameplay trailer, and I've watched this time and time again. So there is the classical looking grunt that's there, and it looks like he even has a classic rebreather on him. There is a very Reach inspired design, but it looks like there are a whole lot more details on it. But it also seems to have a good balancing point between the 343 grunts and the Bungie grunts. So what is this spaceship? It's likely just another UNSC ship that was possibly destroyed in some battle and was forced down here. That's cool, the chin gun on the Pelican, that's a very nice thing over there. It looks really, really beefy too. So people were actually saying that this ship was the Infinity? No possible way. It's way too small. And the Banished dropship, okay, yeah, I got some issues with this here. And you can see this as it flies by, is that it looks like it's on rails. You can definitely see that stilted movement. Like if we're gonna do that again, is that you can see like the stiff motion there, and yeah, I'm not really personally a fan of that. They can up the details if this is an older build, like some people are claiming, but I'm not really a fan of the way it flies. The looks I'm okay with, but like that little right there, you see that? I'm not really a fan of that at all. They can definitely update the flight patterns or give it some sort of AI. It's probably scripted for a demo. That's what I think. There's a lot of this stuff is probably scripted. Okay, so what do we got here? We have a little bit of sprint. There it is. There it is. I remember I was watching, like, okay, there it is. Yeah, that's sprint. Okay, we got it out of the way, but that's about it. So, but it doesn't look like it's specifically fast. And notice when Chief is running, if you were playing Halo 5, by now, you would be getting that enhanced movement. It only takes a couple of seconds for it to show up, and that sort of thing is really not appearing here. It's kind of slow, mostly just for a bit more traversal, but I'll go into what I think that is. So let's take a look at this Warhog really quickly. So it looks like there is a little bit of design reconciliation here. Is that there are definite stylings that it is a 343 Warhog. You can definitely see in some of the silhouette. It seems to be avoiding a lot of the other little bars on the side. They're not roll bars, but they're probably there for winching. They're probably there for attaching some stuff. And there is a streamlined look to the hood and all that. So there is a little bit of blending of styles. The gun shield itself, a lot of people have pointed out by now that it is a square gun shield that's more 343 style, but the gun itself seems to be old style. I don't know. I like the wheels though. They're very rugged, something you'd expect a recon vehicle to have. There are the winches there on the front. That's very iconic tusks. That's great. I mean, a Warhog's got to have its tusks. You see the red shocks. You can see like his nice looking engine on the inside there. I don't know if we had like an engine visible last time, but that's very nice. So let's take a look at the back. We got the jerry cans that we expect from a 343 Warthog. You would want a lot of fuel for your hog. I mean, like there's plenty of it around. As we all know by now, Warthogs run on water. Brackish, fresh, or pure salty. So the engine noises I think are really, really neat. I'm actually going to turn on the sound for that, just because I do like the engine noises of the hog. That was a good drift too. So I think that some people have noted that it seems a little bit light and poppy. I think that's based on the actual noise of the vehicle that they got the sound from. I think the solution to this is actually quite simple, where I believe that if people are not really feeling the sound, I would say I would just give it some more bass. I would just mix the sound, make it a little bit lower. We know that the Warthog has a high capacity engine. It is a military vehicle. But I think it would be very good if you just base it up, make it a bit beefier, make it a bit more intimidating. I don't think we need to keep on reusing the same engine sound over and over again, like a good 6 years of using the same engine sound, more if you can't reach. So 9 years of using the same engine sound. I think it's nice that they used actual vehicles, but you can make it sound more intimidating. This thing's supposed to strike terror in the enemy team as you're driving around, you're doing all that fun stuff. So I think that there is a good middle point. Now, some people claim that the Warthog leaves tracks. I don't think that's correct, because it just looks like it happens to be around this point where there are some divots in the road as he's going through the muddy terrain there. And now as we come over here, scaring some birds, and there's our shot of our battery, and here we have the actual map of the area. Now, I don't know why this bugs a lot of people, because it's actually not the first time we've actually had a map in Halo. I actually want to go back there really quickly. I saw some text. A lot of people were talking about text a little bit earlier, but we're going to slow it down really quickly there. And because there's no sound, there's no I saw you. Ah, there we go. I actually managed to get it. That's great. So let's take a look at what we got here. So we have the island that we're on. It's separated. It's kind of like what I was talking about before, where it seems to be separated. This is a campaign mission, so I would assume that you're going to be confined to this area as we accomplish this story mission, as what it is. It's basically, I believe it's a story mission. We're going to be able to pick it from a list. But I'm going to take a look around here, because I never really had a good enough opportunity to see here before. I knew there was text. I want to look it in. So I'm going to look around here. It looks like there are elimination missions. There are marine rescue missions. I can see one up here just under the attack map. I can see Echo Base, which looks like it's going to be like a friendly base or something you can go into. It's engulf based, echo based and golf based. So there's probably going to be quite a few more before this. I'm assuming we're going to be starting at alpha base. So they're going to be scattered places where we can go stock up, maybe change our equipment or something like that. So Orko Vagadoon. So this is probably an elite of some sort. And I only say that because if you look at the name Vagadoon, it seems to have the apostrophe before the V, which you find typically in elite names. So it's possible that this is someone we're specifically supposed to eliminate, is my guess. A high value target, something that is going to give some morale or give some bonuses to us. So the tower is the one that we've seen before, and a lot of people associate that tower with a potential Palace of Pain. But who knows if that's what it actually is. But we know more or less that seems to be lined up to where we started this. We see in the cutscene it seems to be geographically placed there. So Marine Rescue K. So the Marine Rescues look pretty straightforward. We're going to be going around and getting some of our boys there. We're going to be bringing them back, which again harkens back to the engine demonstration trailer where we saw the Marines being rescued by the chief. So like the people are wounded, you need to pick them up, you need to bring them back, bolster your forces. And that up there near the conservatory, that is most definitely an ODST logo. So it's possible that these guys are survivors of the Infinity getting blowed up, and you have to go there and help them up. That's not the conservatory, of course. It looks like it's actually above that, so it's possible that's another mission or something like that. I don't know. As for a green spire, you got me. A spire is associated with me to the spires that were in Halo Reach. As for what it truly is, I couldn't tell you. That's all I know. So this isn't actually the first time that we've had a TAC map in a Halo game. I'm sure we all remember Halo ODST, which took place in a semi-open world concept as well, where you go around a few districts of New Mombasa, taking the missions as you see fit. You could do them in any order. You can do them in absolutely any order that you wanted. The game didn't force you to do anything. Even though when you picked the missions from a list, it seemed to be in some sort of chronological order. But whenever I played ODST, I always did the MNPD mission first because I always thought that was the funnest one. So I just went there and did that. That's actually okay with me. I like that idea of being alone. In ODST, it was a different feeling where it sort of emphasized the isolation and trying to piece together what happened after your botch drop. Here, it just seems to be plain exploration where the chief is just trying to figure out everything he needs to find out. He needs to go and rally things together, do chief things. That's exactly what the chief does. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got here. We have start mission, which is, I think, the current mission that is going to be around there where you can go over an icon and start it, but I don't know enough about that. That's a center. R to push in, R is to center. View missions, which I believe is probably going to function similar to the traditional playlist. Setting custom waypoint, closed. And at the top, we have the TAC map, which is what we're looking at. Upgrades, which I believe is going to be associated with the currency system that I'm going to talk about in just a second. And the database, which I seriously hope is going to be a place where you can review your collectibles and you can learn a lot about who you're fighting, why you're fighting them, and all the little aspects about the world around you. I think Halo really does need a codex sort of thing. Halo is definitely the sort of thing that you want to do, and you don't want to go to Halo Waypoint or Halo PDF or something like that, and you want to see an in-universe source, which I think is really, really good. And I don't know why the text disappears in all the other places. I think because it's not the focus of the video, and I'm going to bring this back to full speed really quickly. It's not the focus of the video. So we have gun batteries that are around here. They're probably going to be visible in the final game. Okay, so we're not leaving this island until we take out the Banished AA cannons. There are 3 of them. They're heavily defended. Proceed with caution. So that pretty much confirms is that this is a campaign mission of some sort. You're not getting off this island. And if you are, I hope there isn't a return to the battlefield. I really don't. I really hope there's not. I hope there is a traditional kill wall, or that you simply don't have the upgrades to get across, or like the chasms are simply too far away to navigate. That's what I would personally like a whole lot. We have the currency that I was talking about, the currency or the upgrade system, which is probably going to be directly applied to the upgrades. That you're probably going to be associated with the difficulty that he's playing on. He's playing on normal, which really confuses me given how much damage these guys soak up as the player goes on. Now, this thing here looking like a big letter T there in the middle, that's likely some sort of crate or something like that. That's either going to be a text log, a data pad, or something like that. And the one on the far right is definitely a radio. It definitely looks like a radio of some sort. That's probably going to be an audio log. And that's fine. I liked audio logs. I hated looking for them in ODST, but I like them. So we have 3 objectives. We can go in any order to get them. And our guy over here seems like he's going to go west to the first battery. And it's probably, given that given the size of the island, given the fact that he seems to be using a Warthog for the first part, this is going to be a relatively short mission unless that there are different parts to it that we're not seeing. So you'll get information about every single aspect of the island. So the cannon is controlled by a command console underneath the control room. Use the weapon to hack into the console and destroy them. We still don't know what the weapon is. We know that the weapon is contained on a data chip. We know that because he has it very prominently in the first in-game trailer that we saw a couple years back of Chief and the Dropship. It's the weapon. Now I'm wondering if this is just a placeholder sort of thing, where it's probably going to change the text at the very end, or are they just going to be that tight-lipped about it in the final game? They're probably going to change that after we figure out what our weapon is. It's probably an anti-AI is my guess. So, okay, so we're taking a look at all that stuff, and I'm really surprised he's playing on normal. All right, that was interesting. I saw that. I saw that. There was like a little bit of pop in there. Yeah, there it is. As he comes back in, you saw a little bit of lighting change. I'm going to be impartial about this. I'm not going to pass any sort of judgment. I'm just going to say what I'm thinking, what I'm looking at. So Chief is driving there. There are enemies that are making call-outs to him as he's driving around. Like the Grunt's going to say, "Enemy driving around." Also, I just got to go back. I'm sorry. I just got to listen to that just easing the foot on the gas there. Oh, glorious. Glorious. I like that. I like cars too. So just seeing him put the foot down nice and slow is very nice. I like this bird design too. I like this bird design. It's nice to see that they're giving the ring some life. It's something that was way overdue. We heard it so often in levels like Silent Cartographer, where you're hearing the cicadas singing in the trees and stuff like that, and all the swamp creatures in 343 Guilty Spark. It's good to see a couple of animals inhabiting the ring. So after seeing this killer mad air that the Chief's pulling off, where he should get a stunt jump complete at the very end, as well as some rap, he's going around and he's engaging the grunts. Now it's cool that after the grunt here lights up, his suicide grunts, he actually begs the vehicle to stop, which I think is a very nice little bit of flavored dialogue from the grunts. I think if you listen very carefully, you can actually hear him shout, "Stop, stop," before the fender make contact with his skull. So we have the hit markers for that as well. Oh, that's cool. Did you see that? Take a look at it here really quickly. Is that if just after the Chief majorly screws his grunt up, you can see just a little section there. Do you see it? Do you see it right there? I'm gonna see if I have to zoom in, I will. But it looks like that impact from the grenade destroyed the wheel inner tube. So the Chief is riding on 3 wheels right now. That is interesting. That's much more localized damage than we've seen in a lot of other Halo games. So that's cool. I didn't notice that before. Some people said that it blew off a wheel, but I didn't see it. But that's pretty much what it is. I'm wondering if I can see another shot of it. Maybe like as soon as the Chief gets out of the car. I'm going to slow it down again. Just take a look. Yeah, look at that. The wheel is completely gone on the driver's side front of the Warhog. That grenade completely destroyed it. Now that's going to be interesting, especially after we get into multiplayer, where you can potentially destroy parts of a Warthog that may influence the handling of the vehicle. That's cool. I like that. I like that a lot. It could lead to a lot of interesting things where maybe you can bowl the Warthog over or something like that, or it won't have the traction needed to come off of a cliff. And it looks like Chief got a headshot, or at least is lining one up here. Just he's getting out of the hog. And I like the classical jumping look there too. All right, so as we come back in, we can see this is a 343 style of grunt. So we are seeing a combination of aesthetics. So we have the radar working exactly as we want it to. 31 meters of range. It seems awfully arbitrary, and it seems like an out there choice. But a very classic look to things. You are blue this time, not yellow. That's very interesting. So, oh, he got a nice solid headshot, but it doesn't kill him though. That's why I'm curious that this is being played on being played on normal. So he makes a solid hit. I see that we have some of the scaliness from the 343 era here, but they definitely dialed it back too. So a solid hit. Pick up plasma pistol. Actually, I want to take a look to see if that plasma pistol looks like a Halo 5 version, but they really toned it down. It's still got some of the chitness look to it, but the bulbiness of it from the original games definitely doesn't seem like it's there. It's too soon to tell until we get like a good solid look at the weapons. Alright, so here we go. The Mk50 Sidekick. The Mk50 Sidekick, I'm not too sure. So this is our first look at it. And there are a lot of people talking about this, saying that this design doesn't belong in Halo, that it looks too modern. Well, if you look at the back, very likely. So what are we looking at here? I'll see what he'll charge the weapon. Chief will charge the weapon. I do like the little recessed front there. The recessed front does look very Halo-like, where the barrel is recessed into the gun, obviously, but there seems to be a little bit of the gun itself. The shape is pushed back into it. So what do we got here? It looks like we have a safety in the front, and we'll see on the other side as well. But what is this over here? The slide release is on the thumb? I guess that makes sense. The front is the safety, the back is a slide release. We have some cocking serrations here at the back where the user is obviously going to pull back the weapon, slide. And the slide looks interesting too. I'm going to see if I can get it where the Chief is yanking the slide back. So he's grabbing the charging serrations as well and pulling back. Ah, man, I was hoping I could see that. It looks like it's a proof mark of some sort on the gun there as well. I want to see the text, but I really can't. It's a manufacturer's proof mark, but I can't see anything like that too. So here we go. So this weapon seems to be somewhat like a M6 style pistol, where the front half of the weapon is solid. It's like two pieces. Looks like a three-piece thing there, where you have the trigger assembly, you have the lower half of the gun, the lower receiver, and the upper slide of the gun, where the Chief is yanking back, and only a portion of the weapon is going back there. A lot of it's still solid mass. That means there's less moving parts of the gun, and probably would be manageable recoil. If I was designing a firearm, that there would be a similar look to it. And I actually have done stuff where I've designed a handgun that wouldn't look out of place in the Halo universe. So this is different. Yeah, a lot of people are saying it doesn't belong in Halo. It looks like a 1911, which baffles me because this operates nothing like a 1911. It doesn't even look like it loads like a 1911. The slide doesn't operate like it's a 1911. It doesn't have the profile. It doesn't even have the same layout, because most people who know very little about guns will probably just default to everything is AK-47, everything is assault rifle, everything is a 1911, and that probably messes up the Glock fans really bad. A much more plausible example is that a lot of people say that it looks like a SIG, a PT-26, and maybe I grant you that, but the SIG PT-26 I don't think is actually a striker-fired weapon. This is a striker-fired weapon because there is no hammer on the back. So striker fire mechanism means that there is a piece of the weapon inside that moves with the trigger, so it doesn't cock back, it just shoots. I mean, it does cock back inside the gun, but it shoots forward. There is no external moving part. So if you take a look at a weapon like a Glock itself doesn't have an exposed hammer. There is a hammer inside the gun, but it's just one less moving piece you have to worry about in the exterior. I actually don't see an ejected shell casing. That's very interesting. That's very interesting, actually. Is that, maybe there is, if I play a little bit more. Oh, no, there it is, I saw it. So, it's just a minor sort of thing. That I can sort of see where people are coming from when they say it looks a little bit like a PT-26. It has some similarities to it. It doesn't have a hammer, though. The slide doesn't move back the same way. So, okay, I'm going to see if I can get a hold of that proof mark. This video is going to be so damn long, but it's going to be worth it. So, Emerson, I'm going to have to... Man, I really want to see that. I really want to find out what this is, because, like, it's something I got on those guys. If I find out what it is, I'm going to put it in the video. But, like, up until this point and all that, I mean, I'm going to try my best. So, I'm going to talk about that in a second when the weapon is in a bit more sunlight. Good headshot, by the way. This guy, though, he's not going for the headshots, despite playing on normal. So, we have the Elite here. He switches back to the assault rifle. Non-reciprocating charging handle, which is correct for the assault rifle. It shouldn't move. Alright, so the Elite does a nice combat evade, a nice good roll. We see a Needler there in the back. It looks like the classic Needler that we're all a fan of. This looks like a Banished base. I don't think this is a captured UNSC base. I could be wrong, but the racks there don't look like they're human in design. So, this looks a little bit like a Halo 2 Anniversary Reach-inspired Elite. You can definitely see in the wings on the side of the helmet. So let's get nice and close up this guy. It looks like the guy's face looks more like a classic Elite that we've seen. Yeah, the armor does look kind of pastel-y, kind of purpley, but I like the shield emitters and stuff like that. I like the general design of the armor. Oh, nice, solid. Oh, he's got a little slit eyes. That's nice. I like that. That's been in a lot of games already, but it's nice to see all the same. He's not too crazy with the teeth either. And yeah, see, it looks like the animations are a little bit screwy as well on there. So, nice little death pose there. It's very nice. It's very nice. I like the gloves. I like that he's really wearing like an equivalent of Spartan armor. I like the aesthetic. I like it a lot. Alright, so let's take a look at the new gun here. I can nerd out over all these weapons. So what we have here is a VK78. It's an automatic rifle, and it is kinetic. I like the look of this here. This strikes me as something that you would want to have in like Forge, so that it's easy to pick out what this what the weapons are. So tactical, kinetic, auto. So we know that it is a tactical rifle. It seems like tactical rifle is a class of its own. The kinetic is the damage type, and auto. I mean, it seems pretty simple to me. Like, people see kinetic as like, oh, that's Destiny. Well, it just tells you, does it fire a bullet or does it not? It's odd. So VK78. Right away from the designation, we can tell that this is not a Misria weapon, because Misria Armories uses a different weapon classification system. They use the M model for a lot of their guns. So the M model, you have the MA5B, you have the M60, the M45. The only one I think that it isn't the same is the SRS. So that is the sniper rifle system. That is different. So let's take a look at this sort of thing. If we get a good view of this before the player picks it up, unfortunately I don't think so. So VK78. So I'm going to talk about this in a second. So there we go. We have, after he charges the weapon, I think I'm going to have a better look at it after the Chief reloads it. So we have some motion blurring there, which is pretty much par for the course for a lot of games. Let's take a look at this thing. So, we got a holographic scope on there. It looks like this weapon was originally designed to have a back sight on there, which is probably going to be the aesthetic of it if we have if we are able to remove the sights. You have a little quick release there. You have a nice generous charging handle at the side, and that's probably made so that it can clear the side ammunition counter. So it's an automatic weapon. It looks like it shares the reticle with the DMR. Kind of similar, but not exactly the same. So I'm going to have to see where we go with that. So he fires on them. It's an automatic rifle. It looks like it's capable of dealing headshot damage again, because again, we have a little dot, so it's obviously a precision weapon. And a couple of other guys have pointed this out, the rails on the side. Looks like it's possible that we are going to be able to attach a lot of things as well on the side there, like perhaps like a ranger, a laser finder, and something like that. We'll have to see. And this little nub on the front reminds me of a smart zoom as well. It is. I know it's blocked because we have a front post here. Now here we actually get a good look at the new weapon from a nice angle here, the VK78. So, what are we looking at here? We're seeing that this is a much more conventionally designed rifle. If we look at the actual profile of the weapon down at the bottom, we can see that it seems like it's more of a conventional layout of the bullpup ME5. It seems like if you were to move some of these components around, you would actually get the design of a regular MA5 rifle, just with the different organization, the different grouping of everything. Now, a lot of people seem to think that this one seems to be a little out there for a Halo design, and frankly, that argument does have merit, but that's also because people have been seeing virtually nothing but bullpup designs from all of the games. I get what they were sort of trying to do, is that it's futuristic because bullpup automatically means it's the future. But frankly, I'm actually happy to see a more conventional magazine layout, because I've been seeing nothing but bullpup after bullpup after bullpup for every single game, and it actually gets on my nerve a little bit that it just seems to be the only design that people are sort of going for. I mean, if you actually look through a lot of the concept art, and even secondary sources, and I'm going to try my best to try to find pictures and stuff to support this, conventional magazine layouts are actually in Halo as well, so it's not the only design that we have going on here. And the reason I believe that this looks like that, aside from actually trying to take the Chris Vector design and trying to futurize it and make it somewhat more of like a rifle concept, which you see some designs trying to do, but I'm actually surprised we haven't seen anything like that in the modern day. Well, unlike the Chris Vector, which seems to have, which not seems to have, it actually does have the recoil mitigation mechanism that's actually in it as well. This seems to be far more traditional in that respect, like such as having a straight gas operation that's blowing the recoil backwards and not down. So, what do we know about this? We know that the VK78 is not Misria. We know that very much because, number one, it doesn't seem to be a bullpup design, which is pretty signature of Misria. Second, we see that it does not have the same sort of layout. It seems like there's like a bulbous front forend to the weapon, a flat top. Well, a flat top, I mean, like a lot of the other ones have that as well, and a front post where the rear iron sight would line up with. It's a fixed iron post, which I think is a little bit interesting, given the fact that if any other soldier, marine, or serviceman were going to be using this, they'd be looking straight through and just have their sight obstructed anyway, because the dot's going to just be messing with the front bead, which is mitigated, of course, by the chief actually having it linked to his HUD. Okay, so VK78, what do we know about this? This is a weapon designation, and I've tried to look into this, and I believe that this manufacturer is either in Germany or is from a planet that speaks German primarily. And the reason for this is twofold. First of which is the caliber marking here. Caliber is spelled with a K, and typically you would see this on a German design weapon, because if you punch caliber into a translator and bring it to German, caliber is K. Secondly is VK78. Now, I decided to look into it for different weapon designations, and it seems that Germany once again came up in a lot of my research, and primarily VK was a designation that referred to tanks that were designed during World War II. So VK was common there. However, I did find one other hit of usage of VK as a weapon designation, and that was for the Volkssturmgewehr. So, we have a commonality. We have a designation that was used for a German firearm, as well as a caliber marking that was used, that's written in German, which is pretty different compared to other UNSC weapons. So we have a German design weapon here, which means it probably looks very nice on the inside, even if the outside looks a little bit differently. So we have a side-mounted ammunition counter, which is very Halo as well, to have exposed ammunition counters. I would prefer having as little electronic devices on a firearm as possible, because if you have power taken away, which we have seen in the Halo universe very, very recently, I don't think it's such a good thing to have that much automation on a firearm. Just keep it nice and simple and add your extra bits onto it. So we have the flat top here with a holographic sight, which could be indicative of weapon upgrades and stuff like that, but this could be fixed because that appears on the weapon layout here, the weapon icon. Then again, we have also seen that in Halo 5, I believe, that the profile of the weapon changes. So we also have a side rail here, which is pretty much going to be similar to I believe we have screens of the BR55 or something similar to that has something on the side as well. So side mountings, you would expect that for a weapon. So we're going to have to see where that happens. I did notice when I was playing through this scene in slow motion as well. Oh, also there's a bolt catch here on the side of the gun. And I know this because I know this little nub right beneath it, close to the trigger guard, is a magazine release, and I'm going to show you that in a second, which means that the one above here is a bolt catch. However, the chief doesn't seem to use that bolt catch, instead seemed to be racking the charging handle. But since it would be a soldier, or a sailor in this case, a Spartan, he would, you would think that he would hit the bolt catch when the weapon is empty. But I think that would make people upset as is, because bolt catch equals modern shooter, not like good firearm design, and instead he racks the handle. And also it looks like there's an ejection port here on the left-hand side of the gun, which means that it's ambidextrous, which is nice. Which also could mean that the ammunition counter could double as a brass reflector, which is interesting. I've never seen that sort of thing before, but there was a piece of animation here that I really liked, and that was when the chief empties the magazine, so he's emptying the mag, so he's using gravity as his friend here, he's letting it go out there. Wait a sec. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting shadow work there. So gravity is the Chief's friend. He's letting the magazine fall out by giving it a little push of inertia. And actually, if you look very, very carefully at the mag release here, which is what I showed you here, look at it right on top of his thumb as he's pushing it down. The Chief has actually hit the magazine release and popped it out there. So that's a nice little touch of detail. It's a good touch of detail. I like that firearm detail there. ADS 341. I wonder what that marking is there. I have no clue what that is. It's probably either a manufacturer's marking. It's not a serial number, but it could be a lot number or it could be a factory number. I don't know what it is because it's certainly not referring to the rail-mounted holographic scope there. It just doesn't make sense. As for the positive and negative there, aside from a volume switch, which I don't know if that could create a very silent weapon, I think it could be maybe power to the gun or something like that, or it's just an aesthetic a little bit there. Hold on a second. Hold on. I noticed a boo-boo here. Look at the safety. I see this in so many games, and this is such a minor thing, but it skeeves me so much here. It's set to safe. It's set to safe. The weapon is set to safe. There are two markings there: safe and fun. It's not set to fun, but we know that it's a fully automatic weapon, but it's still set on the white dot. Oh my goodness. I know that's such a minor thing, but since people are nitpicking about this game so much, I'm actually going to do that myself. Oh, geez. Come on, just set it to the fun switch there. Set it to automatic. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about these hexagons. I would prefer it if they were blue because it goes with the Mjolnir color scheme. I know the shield is gold. A way to make it just a little bit better would be to either make them hollow and make them a bit more translucent, or make them blue and also make them translucent, either which I'm fine. You can see what I was talking about here about some of the texturing disappearing in the indirect lighting, where they could make a little bit of improvement, which if this is an old build, okay, but if it's a current build, then we got problems here. But you still can see some of the Forerunner, some of the Forerunner metal here, which loses its luster. All right, so I believe that Chief switches to his sidearm here, coming up in a second. So he's charging up there, so we definitely have a sprint. It does seem pretty slow, all things considered. We have warning signs about where the drop pods are going to land, which is nice. And nice little braking there. I suppose it can use some glass particles shooting out. And the banished dudes are going to jump out. So this is probably scripted. I have a very sneaking suspicion that this is scripted for the mission. So they're coming out here. And I like that little covering, and they're saying that these guys remind me of the Cabal and stuff like that, but the Cabal, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, have much bulkier armor, I believe have Space Marine-looking pauldrons, and also every one of them has a jetpack and a full face covering. So I can definitely see what some people are talking about here. So that's a good stick. We have the spike grenades. The spike grenades, of course, are there. They're going through a rage animation, which I don't know if that's necessary and all that, but they should be getting into it. And the explosion to get rid of the assets off the board. So I like that he's going into a charge immediately, because these guys are probably berserkers. That's probably why. I mean, all brutes berserk, but these guys are probably like a special class of enemy. I believe the Banished are far more militaristic, but far more structured as compared to the brutes we saw in Halo 2 and 3. So Boyle's making a charge for the Chief here, and we see that he's unloading on his leg specifically, where he knocks off some armor. This is interesting particle effect from the gun there. But it's also stumbling, which is really nice. He's stumbling, which means that we have contextual damage locations. That's very nice. And he's going for the headshot. I know the player's trying to go for the headshot, but he's just not hitting it. So then we have happy monkey man right there. Happy monkey man. Okay, I said it. We gotta say it. Because we noticed it with the elite at the beginning. We have existential crisis monkey. Good night, sweet prince. Chief, you gotta beer can that thing. You gotta beer can the magazine. But you probably can't, because we have this interesting sort of magwell here with the witness holes that a serviceman can look through, and he can actually see the bullets in there. And I think you can actually make out the modeling of each individual cartridge there. So the witness holes are interesting. It's good because this is what I'm talking about. There is a visual backup to the weapon. This is a very practically designed firearm. I would think that, yeah, that this would be realistic in an actual military scenario, where if you have your electronics fail on you, you have a visual aid. There's your ammo counter right there, your ammunition counter. So we have the backup, we have the spike grenades, we have a fusion coil, we have some sort of MRE here, and this is UNSC equipment that's been in a banished camp. So there you go. He's racking the charging handle. I want to see those markings there. It's actually very nice. you can actually see some cool detail. You have the spike grenades and the pickup fusion coil, which we know that it's equipment essentially. And this helmet is reminding me a bit more of like the Halo 3 brutes, the the captains. We have the two-way wall. So we have the drop shield and we have the drop wall, which is nice. They're still following the naming convention. I want to see. Okay, so that's interesting. I didn't notice that the bolt is actually going back as well. So there's probably a special follower. Ooh, you can actually see the entrance to the firing chamber in there. It's very interesting. Probably has a rotating bolt or something like that, much like an AR platform. That's actually a nice detail where they're actually modeling the interior of the gun. That's really good. I like that detail. As a firearms nut and stuff like that, like when it comes to stuff in games, so that's a very cool detail. I love it when they put that little that attention. So once again, use gravity as your friend. Put in a new mag. So again, this guy is definitely going for the headshot. We can see that the player is definitely slowing down his shots there. He's going for the head. He's trying to. But that beautiful 1-2 punch. We can see another happy monkey man. Well, this one's slightly less happy. Well, I mean, he has slightly more emotion. That is slightly perturbed. He's trying to do the slam. And what I think is interesting is that should have killed him immediately. I don't think I've seen very many people talk about that, where that explosion should have immediately put him into the death animation. But it seems like the death animation is conflicting with the flight animation. So you don't see him completely keel over as soon as he hits the ground, which is funny to me. You're blowing through ammo, son. So we have Ravager, launcher plasma burst. There seems to be like there's going to be quite a bit of weapons in this game. I like that. I like choice, but the difficulty is making them work in the sandbox. So as we pick up the Ravager here, I'm noticing something that was very strange, and maybe this is apparent to some people and maybe not. I didn't play Halo Wars 2, so I didn't know all that much about it, but the Ravager seems to conflict with brute design, at least with Halo 2 and Halo 3 designs. That the Ravager is plasma based, and I believe that a main draw of brute weapons was that they were projectile based, unlike many other things in the Covenant. You can see like there's this like thrumming motors there. It's plasma based, so like I said, it's a departure from the projectiles that we've seen in a lot of other games, but it has that nice brute inspired bayonet on the end of it, and I believe I read somewhere that it's still going to lead to a melee bonus, which reminds me of the brute shot in Halo 3, where I'm calling it that it definitely has some sort of melee bonus. So we switch back to the Sidekick, the Mk50 Sidekick, and this is definitely not Mesria designed, as we can see in its design language, and we can see in the maker's mark there. I mean, I would be really surprised if players would accept a plus 1 round bonus to any weapon, but in Halo never had a plus 1 mechanic to it. So let's take a look at this thing. So we have another UNSC standard issue weapon. We have the Mk50 Sidekick. I believe MK is Mark in this case, which means that if Halo is following modern military traditions, the Mark designation is typically for the Navy, I believe. I believe that they use that sort of thing. So Sidekick, which is a funny name because Sidekick, it seems so friendly. It seems like the sort of name you would give to a concealed carry pistol. Okay, so let's take a look at the rest of this. We have another manufacturer's marking right there on the bottom of the grip. And if I figured out what the actual name of this manufacturer is, I probably would have put it in the beginning of the video. We see that there is a laser on the front. There's a laser on the front because either that or it's a smart scope of some sort, because it has an on-off switch, and it's currently set to the on switch. It's possible that it could be hooked up to the Chief's visor, or it could be a laser, but I doubt it. And the way that it's placed on there says to me that it's probably on a rail as well. So it has a self-contained power source. We have the safety switch, which is interestingly set above the trigger. It seems like it could be accessible by the trigger finger. And the fact that it's on the left side of the gun means that it was designed for an ambidextrous user, or like left-handed users. And we have the slide release that's on the back of the weapon, which means that the slide catches underneath the body of the slide. And I don't think we saw an empty animation of the weapon. So there's no way of knowing whether or not that's going to be the case. Whether he's going to do that or just rack the slider, just power stroke it. And the switch at the very end of the gun strikes me as being a disassembly lever. So if you were going to be taking it apart, you would put that down, probably bring the slide to the half position, and mess around with some components of the frame, and then just take it apart. Which is very interesting because it looks like, again, this, as I stated before, the gun is more or less in 3 pieces. You have the lower receiver, the upper receiver, and the slide assembly. No exposed hammer, which says to me that it's striker fired. And you have that little halo recessed portion of the gun there at the front. So while it's not the typical halo pistol, I definitely wouldn't mistake this for a common, like a P226, or some people are saying a 1911. Again, 1911. I don't see it. I really don't from the side. Maybe I just have been around firearms so much and all that, but it seems to have more in common with the halo design than a 1911. Or even a P226. If you were to ask me, it looks like a Beretta PX4 Storm. So, as for this little nub there at the bottom, you know what I think that is? It could be entirely incorrect. It could be that, like a Bren 10, if anyone's seen Gun Jesus' video on the Bren 10, where it only pops the magazine out only a little bit. That's the only thing that I could see that as, where it just locks it out a little bit, and you just pull it out the rest of the way. Yeah. As for ACC, I don't know. Usually on some... Actually, I don't know what that is. ACC, that's the only thing that I'm a loss for. Maybe it means something else, and if I know what it is, I'll just put it in. Chief, of course, showing good trigger discipline as he's dropping the mag and putting in a new one. Slamming it in. Putting it back on there. Also, 10mm. 10mm. This is actually quite light for a human handgun in the Halo universe. A 10mm handgun, whereas the M60 was chambered in 12.7 by 40mm, I think it was, which essentially makes it a 50 caliber pistol. Makes it a 50 cal, which makes it a Desert Eagle. So this is actually rather light for a handgun. It's pretty much chambered in the same way that a Smith & Wesson MP40 is, because 10mm is basically 40 caliber, or chambered the same as like a Fallout pistol, if you want more of a video game example. That off-center little circle there, it's not the trigger mechanism. Sorry, not the trigger mechanism. It's not the striker. It's not the hammer. It's probably like a disassembly window, kind of like on a 1911. That's pretty much one of the major differences I can see. Or maybe it could be like a window that shows whether or not the pistol's cocked or not. I didn't see a decocking thing, so it definitely doesn't make it a P226. I can definitely see where some people are coming from here, because from the first person perspective, it does look kind of modern, like modern in our sense. Maybe they put like a little vent on the side and stuff like that. Like everything's got to have vents. Everything's got to have some greebling on it, like in the Call of Duty Infinite Warfare or something like that, where they had like every other thing. There's like a square on the gun every other 2 inches. I just described all of them basically. So there's some beautiful swelling of the music that's here as soon as Chief reaches the top, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, if you've seen like the original video, you know, there's our tower out in the distance, which could be the Palace of Pain. I don't know. I see some more bases over there, but I'm definitely seeing some level of detail that definitely needs to be addressed. It definitely does. And again, maybe it has already. I don't know, but like the shadow work just seems very strange to me. There was a plausible explanation that because this demo was made during the COVID-19 thing, like when it was really getting bad a couple months back. But again, there's just something that's just so weird. I refuse to believe that the game looks like this now. And if it does, well, that's on me. So here it is again, the Phantom. One of the things I really disliked about this is the flight path of this Phantom. You can look to see that it's just looking so strange. It's just jostling around. It's definitely on a flight path, and you can see some shadow work that's very strange there. And we have the look at the Jackal here. We have the Jackals, which are obviously designed to be more like the prior to the to Halo 4, where they're more bird-like, where they have more gaiety, where they don't seem to have the same sort of weight that they do in Halo Combat Evolved. And I just noticed that the casing spawned in front of the gun. I see this in so many games. It's not even funny. I know because they spawn the cartridge in the world versus in the player's vision. I get that. It's just you caught it at just a weird frame. So the Chief goes in, and the player is just trying to go for the head, but he just doesn't seem to do it. It's like the pain animation just Gets it out of the way there. Interesting that the Jackal doesn't spawn with the shield on. That says to me that they are probably not expecting to get attacked. But I think it was weird because these guys should have heard the gun battle that was down below. But maybe because all the fighting stopped, they're probably thinking, in lore by the way, that, oh, okay, maybe it's done. Maybe we can just take it easy now. But they spawn without their shields, which means you can probably get away with a couple of nasty sneak attacks. Like the guy doing it, he's not aiming well. So we see a guy that's blown away. And yeah, there we go. Check this out. We see the flying grunt that's coming over there. And which I think is actually very interesting. I think I noticed a couple of an animation burp here. Where, as we see over there, there's the grunt on the ground. He already has his little flares lit there. And you can see, look at the brute in the back. He's beginning to do the throwing animation that we've all noticed here. And I think it's by proximity. There doesn't seem to be a specific animation of the brute picking up the grunt and tossing him. But even though he's relatively close, and there you go, you see his hands going forward, he's following through, and he's throwing the little bastard. So it seems like, again, there's no animation for that, and that's too bad. Maybe there is, but it doesn't look like there is right now. And as the grunt's flying through the air, and he's really sailing a little leaguer right here. He does this wonderful little screw you at the chief as he comes towards it, which is nice because that's the ultimate screw you in my example. So we have clamor. We have clamor in the game, and I think that's something that that I think the leaks on 4chan definitely made apparent. A lot of these things I'm not really surprised by because I saw them in the leaks a long time ago, and 4chan has been known to be right about a lot of these things. Oh, that's like a deployable base. That's pretty cool. 4chan has been known to be correct at times about these sort of things. But I had a funny feeling that a lot of the stuff they were talking about was correct. Especially when it comes to the details that's been proven. I'm surprised this is normal. I'm surprised that he's playing on normal here. These enemies seem to be taking a lot of hits. That's a nice drawing animation. So the Pulse Carbine. Definitely seems to be taking some hints from the Coveted Carbine. Maybe the Coveted Carbine is in the game. But I don't believe that this is a headshot-capable weapon. I just think it's a burst-fire gun, just like the Ravager. And there's a venting mechanism, just like the Plasma Repeater. So it makes me wonder, these are two burst weapons. But this one seems to be more meant for long-range precision in big old marks there, big old quotation marks, where the Ravager seems to be area of effect, where you would use that would cause more damage. I don't know if there is headshot damage. I don't believe there might be, because, well, see, whenever he goes over an enemy, this little circle seems to appear on it. So they're obviously talking, so there are some animations. And a burst seems to take down some of these grunts, so like a 3-round burst, actually it's a 4-round burst, so it's 68%, and it's down to 64. So each shot is like 1%, so there should be 100 shots in this thing, which really isn't all that much. So there's no he's venting it or overheating. I wasn't paying attention exactly. So we have the Jackal with the Needler. But we really didn't get much of a good look at the plasma pistol, which is too bad in this one. So now we have the Mangler. Oh, there's 2 sets of blades on that. I didn't notice that before. I thought there was just one blade right beneath the bore of the weapon. So we have a Mangler, which is much more in line with what we expect brute weapons to be. So there are two blades on there that I suppose you can either thrust towards an enemy or jam it down over someone's head. So this one seems to be more traditional brute inspired. And I believe this is a precision revolver. So Chief gives the carousel a little spin, as you do with a weapon like this. And given the small size of the reticle, oh, we see like there's an Artemis Tracker here as well, which I think would be very useful if you're doing an open world thing. But it seems like there was always a nav point over one of his objectives. It seems like there is, so the Artemis thing might be useful for locating perhaps collectibles or something like that. Chief is going to pull, so this is like a precision weapon, I believe, because as we're going to see in a second here, I don't believe this is supposed to be a new iteration of the Mauler. And like I said, we'll see in a second why I think that is. So we have the traversal methods, we have the lovely usage of the grappling hook. And we have, so he's pointing at the head, so he does like a little sprint there. That seems to be a different design of the plasma pistol, to be perfectly honest. It doesn't seem to match the design of Halo 5. But it doesn't seem to match the designs of the original series either. And we have the rebreather. That seems to be far more traditional in its look too. And Chief does like this nice little hook swipe there. So we have a shade turret that seems to be shielded, and that's going to play into something else that happens. So we have the 343 Grunt. We aim for the head. Lovely headshot. So it's probably a precision weapon, and why I think that it's such is in a second here. This is not a shotgun. So Chief is actually going to perform a reload here where he brings out the carousel and he dumps what looks like big old slugs. Big old slugs. These are not shotgun shells of any sort there. Also, this is what I mentioned earlier, is that none of the slugs actually seem to be expended, despite the fact that it looks like Chief has fired off a couple already. And this sort of is a level of detail that we don't usually see in Halo games, which is individual shots rendered in a magazine. So this is just like a basic sort of reloading, because again, this falls into the +1 mechanic that a lot of other games have, and it's something that Halo has never ever done. So Chief empties out these monster slugs, then brings up what looks like a speed loader, which is nice. I like it. I like a speed loader. It makes a lot of sense. For you have a revolver, you have a speed loader. You're not going to load them in individually, and you're not going to load in a new drum. So I like it. That's different, and I kind of like the idea. It's novel, and it's an alien weapon, so what do I care? It's better than just dropping out like a drum and putting it in there. It's like a level of detail that's nice. So he whips it back into shape there. He pulls a plasma coil, and a lot of people have been confused as to why it didn't blow it up. And the reason for that is, I'm taking a look at that, is when you see two of them right next to one another. We see a blue plasma coil and a yellow plasma coil. I believe the blue plasma coil is an EMP plasma coil, and what I mean by that is it seems to fulfill the same function as an overcharged plasma pistol shot, and you'll see that when the Chief throws it. And this looks interesting too, over next to this yellow plasma coil, which I believe is the incendiary plasma coil, the actual boom plasma coil, and not the zap plasma coil. This looks interesting. I wonder if this is a collectible, because it seems to sort of match the general shape of what we saw on the map. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it looks similar in shape. So he drags it towards him, which is not, again, a nice detail. And he holds fusion coil, which seems to be a catch-all term, because Covenant used plasma coils, or plasma tanks. So he yeets it up, and it seems to take out only the energy shielding. It doesn't do any actual damage to the shade itself, but it seems like it EMPs the shield away from it, and it probably will work with the same with shielded enemies like elites as well, I would imagine. I actually failed to mention this before. I was looking back at some footage, and I noticed that when the Chief was throwing the plasma coil at the shade turret was currently engaged with where it thought the Master Chief was at the time. So I think that's very interesting, is that enemies will continue to fire on the last position that they saw you while you're going to flank them around the map. It's a really cool little detail, and you've actually seen it a couple times during the trailer, but I did not actually note it in my original voiceover, so giving it some notice would be very, very honest to me. Also, there was a little bit of sliding involved, but it was pretty subtle in my opinion. I actually missed it several times while I was looking around, but it's important to note that it was in there. I wasn't purposely trying to ignore it. And again, this shows like the fact that it's a precision weapon, not a shotgun. He goes for the head, gets the headshot all the way from here. And this is quite a long way for shotguns. I don't believe that the Mangler was ever as effective at this range, and because of the small reticle, it might be a lot more difficult to get the headshot on there. There is far less spread, obviously, but it also means that it's a smaller area to actually get onto your opponent's head, and it probably may take a couple shots to kill an armored, a fully shielded Spartan, that is. So nice, perfect, good shot, and it looks like he did a little bit of damage to the shade as well. I like the little bit of animation there. I like the fact that Chief's holding with two hands implies that it's a pretty heavy weapon. Since it's a brute weapon, it's nice. It's a good detail. Okay, so here's something I also noticed here. A lot of people think that this guy actually missed his throw. technically he didn't, and this was a nice little detail I thought was really cool. So watch this. So we know what the player is trying to do. Player is trying to stick the fusion coil and get a nice explosion to kill everybody here, because this is a demo. All this has been scripted in the sense that they practice this, they rehearse this. So he makes the toss, and this is what it is. Some people say, did he miss the throw? Technically not. Watch this. Check it out. Watch where the grenade went, and I'm hoping I can stop it at the correct part. Look at that. Did you see that? One more time. Is right through the frickin' 5-hole. What a toss. It actually went right through the spot where there just happened to be no geometry at all, no collision, which also says that the hitbox of this thing is very, very accurate, because in any other game it would probably just stick to it anyway. That's great. That's a nice little detail, and I like how the Brute is trying to dodge out of the way anyway, because he just threw a grenade at him. I just want to watch that one more time. That sheer luck of missing that throw. And the player say, oh, what do I do now? I guess I have to improvise. Check this out. That's wonderful. Right through the 5-hole. Wonderful. I just love that so much. And again, good headshot. Once again, proving this a headshot weapon. So the shields have obviously come back, and the player clipped right through the shield. He should have climbed in through the back, in my opinion. So the player is now doing everything else that they were going to be doing the demo. Oh, that's interesting. Is that the fusion coil that actually got set off there? I think it is. Yeah, I thought it was a grunt at first, but it didn't match the color that we saw the rest of it. So I was wondering what was going off there. So kind of like a propane tank that was setting off, which we have seen in Halo 3, of course. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of the demo here. And we see another weapon that is interesting. Actually, it's also interesting because the exact same weapon happens to be in the Brute's hand right now, which is the Bulldog shotgun. And the fact that a Brute is holding a human shotgun is correct. That is pretty much what a Brute would do. And never mind the fact that the Banished seem to be far more militarized and far more organized and far more logical as a military force versus the Brutes used by the Covenant. The Brutes seem to respect the ferocity of some human weapons, which is why in Halo 2 you saw them wielding shotguns usually, because they like the tearing capacity of it. It liked the spreading of stuff, because it's something that was known to them. The spreading of pellets. It was something that was known to them. So again, it strikes to me that the guy's trying to get the headshot. I know picking up the Bulldog is probably scripted as part of the event, but it just seems that it was something that wasn't expected. Okay, so we have the Bulldog, which is made by Misri. And how do I know about this? Because it wouldn't be a Misri weapon if they weren't advertising it in every square inch of their gun. As they pull it up, we see not one, but 2 Misri maker's marks on there. Which again is entirely in character for Misri, because they had a freaking monopoly on all the other guns in the galaxy prior to 2560 apparently. So I'm actually happy again that they're doing different manufacturers, because I don't like monopolies. I really don't like monopolies at all and stuff like that. So the fact that you have a couple of companies that are vying to arm an interstellar empire, it makes sense that you have more than one dude covering the costs or covering the production. Okay, so once again, we have a side mounting rail, which once again means that we're probably going to get something like a laser on the side. Good firearm design, logical firearm design, but it probably also means that there's a gimmick to it as well. So it's a 12-gauge shotgun. This is different. And there it is right there. 10 12-gauge slugs. I said, was it 2 millimeters? Something like that, 2.5 millimeters, or something like that. So a 12-gauge shell. This is actually surprisingly light for a shotgun in the Halo universe that we haven't seen thus far. That's interesting, because we know that the M45 shotgun and the M90 shotgun were both chambered in 8-gauge. Now this is a ridiculous caliber for a shotgun that we've seen anywhere. Even in the modern day, you really don't see much like that. There is like the KS-23, which I think is chambered in 4-gauge, if I remember, the KS-23 itself being a cut-down anti-aircraft gun chamber for shot shells. And I believe that 8-gauge shotgun shells in the modern world are typically used for industrial shotguns that are used to break up concrete or something like that, or used in mining or used in construction or something like that. So the choice to downgrade to a 12-gauge shell is awfully surprising, because again, it makes it puny. Because we have to remember that with shotgun shells, the smaller the gauge, the more powerful it is. So you would have 20 gauge, 12 gauge, 10 gauge, and then 8 gauge, and then 4 gauge if you happen to be Russian. Now, some people say that this isn't a very Halo design. I sort of disagree, because it has these little windows on the weapon. It seems to be a little bit rounded as well. It gives me vibes of the M45, just with a more of a Pancor jackhammer looking top thing here, and a drum that sort of reminds me of... what does it remind me of? It reminds me of a modern weapon of some sort, but I can't think of it. Yeah, the drum of an AA-12. I know it's not correct, because the CQB-45... Is it CQB-45? I didn't pay attention to it. CQS-45. CQS-45 is pump action, as you can see here, where it rotates the drum like that. So, this is an interesting sort of detail, is the marking of the shell gauge. Also uses an animal. Do you think that's actually really interesting? Is that when you have the Soulcraft 8-gauge shotgun shells, if you take a look at the actual shell itself, you're going to notice that there is an animal that's printed on the shell, the hippo, which is something that's been on a couple of games, I believe. I can't quite remember. So the 12-gauge shell, for this particular shell, it's probably a proprietary shell. Wouldn't be surprised if Mizria makes their own stuff, or maybe they buy from Soulcraft and they put it in as a combined effort. Who knows? Is marked there with a Viper. So we see another bit of interesting marking there, and I believe we're going to get a chance to look at it. Here we go. Is that we have a maker's mark. We have a proof mark here on the side of the gun. Misery Armory, Eos Cosma, Mars. Eos Cosma, a region on Mars, which is a nice touch. So there is a manufacturing portion, a manufacturing center in that particular part of the planet. So the CQS-45 combat shotgun model of, I'm going to assume, 2545. And it's awfully weak, especially compared to the M45. So, and this is why, I think it's interesting, despite the fact that it's clear that the guy's playing on normal, there seems to be some screwery going on here. So, he takes out the shield. That's one shot. There's the second shot. Now that kills him. That's 2 shots. Okay, in close range, that makes sense. But if he was a little bit closer, I think that should have been a one-shot kill, especially if he was doing that close range on an elite. Now, Chief does a very interesting sort of twist on the magazine to release it, which I don't think is necessary, considering the fact that there is a magazine release there on the trigger guard. There are folded iron sights, good for your average human person that wants to use this gun, and the Chief has him folded down, or maybe the Brute's folded it down, because what's aiming anyway for a Brute? As long as you point in the right direction, the guy falls over. Job well done. So the Chief does this weird little twist on the magazine to take it out, which again I think is a little bit unnecessary. Maybe he oh, did you see that? I think that's a very interesting detail on the shotgun there. It looks like there's a window where the current shell's fired. Maybe he touched the release, then twisted it. So Chief twists it where he unlocks it from the well there, and it looks like there is I think that's interesting, is that there is a spent shell there, because it has a puncture there where the fire, well, it's not a puncture, but an indent where it was struck. But it looks like there is, only a window for the shell that is being indexed for firing, which again is a little bit interesting, because the whole drum seems to rotate, but what do I know? That's a little bit strange. I'm a fool. Okay, I'm going to basically contradict myself, as because it's pump action, it actually seems to be pushing the shell out of the magazine into the firing chamber, because that seems like a plunger there that basically knocks it out there. But it's already struck. Okay, that's a little bit interesting. Okay, I think I see as well. I think I see the design there, where it seems like it's twisted in a position where this little arrow seems to be the proper place on where to put it. There is an interesting thing here with the contextual damage that I mentioned a little bit earlier, which I think is a nice touch, is where the Chief fires on the Brute here. He hits him in the back with a whole bunch of pellets, and the Brute
in obvious pain and shock and surprise, grabs the back of his back, and grabs his back as like a pain reaction. That's nice because it staggers an enemy as well for a good follow-up shot that kills him. So it's like 2 shots. That's fine. Canceling the reload, which is a common thing, where it just basically puts the weapon from the reload animation to like the draw animation, the sheathing animation. Ooh, man, that was nice. Rolled a 20 on that one. Critical hit. So that should have killed him. That close range shotgun should have killed him at that point. Maybe that's why you use 12 gauge here and not 8 gauge like you should. Now, according to IGN, this shotgun, the CQS-45, is replacing the M45, and that's going to make a lot of people upset. It will, and I get it. And this doesn't bother me that much because like I like seeing different things all the time. I do. But we'll have to see what happens. And maybe then there's a legacy weapon, just like I think the M6 series of pistols is in there as well. But I don't know. We'll have to see. This is such a small snippet of the gameplay. And that's the thing. This is gameplay. I'm not really touching much on the graphics. I am, but we'll have to see more about how the game plays. That's what I'm more concerned about, but I'm pointing out things that are standing out. Another nice 1-2 punch where he goes right up to him. Boom! Knocks him in the next week. And he cleans up the Grunt, the 343 Grunt there, which again should have killed that guy. But we'll have to see if there's some spread on there as well. Okay, this is sort of a second sort of insight here. Some people don't really seem to like the idea that you go towards an enemy, or the fact that a half-ton Spartan seems to be drawn towards a bad guy, or that enemies don't get pulled towards you. From what I understand, it's a gameplay decision on the part of the developers, and people claim that their immersion's broken because of that. Well, there's a reason I'm using this picture, because as we all know, that in Halo 3, whenever you die in water, you float. Your half-ton ass floats in water. That doesn't break my immersion. I have suspension of disbelief. I think, and when you land on an enemy in any Halo game, you don't instantly kill them. It's all about suspension of disbelief. You accept that, why can't you accept this, especially from a gameplay perspective? That just should have killed him, in my opinion. And this is essentially the end of the demo, more or less. So there's relatively few things to talk about at this point, where you do see the same animation of hitting a button that we saw in the other Halo games. That's just basically been recycled, but whatever. Recycling animations is nothing new for Halo at all. So we have the sealing in and the reveal of the new brute villain, which seems to be an Act 2 villain, if what we know is correct about this taking place further into the campaign. We had some flashbacks to the trailer. And I like this guy. I really do like him because I like his dialogue. I like the fact that he seems to be a respectable sort of enemy. I like the fact that he's definitely not the religious sort that we saw with Tartarus or the other brutes in Alliance with the Covenant. And that the first thing you see when you talk to him is that he calls out the UNSC by name, which is interesting to me because I've never seen any former Covenant or Covenant adjacent character, to my knowledge, refer to the UNSC as such. So it recognizes that they're an organization. It recognizes that they're a military force. He doesn't refer to them as humanity. He refers to them by the faction, which immediately tells me that this guy, I believe his name is Escaron, if I remember correctly, that he is treating them as a hostile military force and not as a racial force. So they're going after humanity, then again, who isn't? But he is treating them with a level of respect to recognize their army as such. The way he talks to Chief, the way he basically says that I just want a good fight, makes me think of him as like an orc. In a good way. Some people have compared him to a Gundabad orc. I think Hidden Xperia did. He looks like a Gundabad orc. He kind of does, doesn't he? But then again, shaved brutes were never the prettiest thing in the world, especially Halo Reach brutes. I think, come on. If we're going to give anybody crap for brute designs, we got to talk about Halo Reach. Come on. Not even a goatee. Not even a goatee. So the fact that there's some facial hair on this guy is very nice. Is that he calls out the Chief. He knows he's there, obviously, but he just wants a good old scrap, which is something I really respect, is that He's not trying to go after him for religious reasons. He's not going to trying to go after him for revenge for kicking the hell out of his brothers a couple years back. But he just wants to have a nice scrap. And he treats the chief as an honored warrior. He treats him as a worthy foe. I like his lines like, set a fire in your heart, Spartan. And we've seen Spartan being used as a sign of respect. When the Arbiter went to the chief's side at the end of Halo 2 going into Halo 3, he refers to him not so often as demon, but he also refers to him as Spartan, as a warrior. So that's a high level of respect that the brute leader here is giving towards the chief. And I like that. I like the fact that we have a guy who's not just trying to rip his head off just for the hell of it. He has some sort of motivation. He has some sort of challenge to extend towards the chief. So in terms of story, in terms of character development, I like him already. I was never judging this on graphics, though I think we are pretty much aware that there are some issues with this. So looking at the casualty thing here, oh, there are actually some names here as well. If I back it up just right, we can see all the different tags of people, the different branches and stuff like that. They're using the Halo. They're using the Halo. Looks like the Halo Reach rankings for all this stuff. So actually, there are names on here. So check it out. Looks like we have over here in the far right hand, we have a guy named Anthony C. Or Anthony C. Something like that. So UNSC Navy, and it was a sergeant or something like that. I don't know. And it looks like there's service numbers as well. There are service numbers. We have Justine B. Lopez. Okay, yeah, Diaz. Anthony C. Diaz. Justine B. Lopez, who's part of the UNSC Navy, Office of Naval Intelligence. We have a hell jumper up here. I can't make out his name, but we have Joseph Williams over here. So this is a nice little touch here. They're all members of the UNSC as Marines or Navy or something like that. But just knowing that they actually have names attached to them makes this a bit more tragic, knowing that they're all dead. So we have a couple of names associated with these guys, and they're all deceased. And they were associated with the Infinity, which proves that if the ship is not completely destroyed, it's definitely very heavily damaged. Oh, and here's another picture of the Pelican, which obviously has Halo 2, Halo Reach vibes and all that. Not Halo 2, Halo Reach vibes, more like it. Not 3, because 3 had a different cockpit layout than that. And this is probably going to be a pretty heavy thing for the chief as well, knowing that all these guys are dead. Knowing that all these guys have been completely destroyed, knowing that they're like, each one of them represents a body of somebody that's died during this attack. And he probably maybe even looking for people that he personally knew. He probably even looking for Lasky, or probably looking for a surviving Spartan that might have been with him. So again, that's a pretty heavy moment. This is a pretty heavy scene right here, especially when you think about it. And there's a shot back to the trailer, which again shows quite a bit more graphical fidelity there, and I think there is a bit more detail in here compared to like the gameplay. It seems to me, I could be wrong, it just looks like it is. Maybe that's just the lighting playing tricks on me. So again, this is pretty much what I thought. I might even toss in the minute-long gameplay trailer that we saw there too. It's just for a bonus. So why not? Why not? This video's been going on for so long already. Yeah, textures loading textures and stuff like that. Half texture monkey man. Maybe because he's like blind in this side, maybe he's got no textures on there either. I honestly didn't notice. Maybe if I looked a little bit closer, I would have seen that sort of thing. It does seem to be a problem with textures that are not in direct light. It looks like the indirect lighting is really doing something to the bump mapping to the normals and stuff like that. And otherwise, in the parts that are textured, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Man, this Escaron's really getting in my personal space here. He's getting in my personal space, but then again, that's perfectly correct for a brute as well. I wonder if these things are knives here on the side there, if they're just like decorative little things, kind of like on a samurai's helmet or something like that. It's cool. I like the concept. I just think that the presentation is a little bit better. And again, I wasn't really judging this on how it looks, rather the details. I'm not judging it, period. I'm just saying what's actually in the trailer. Too long didn't read. I was satisfied. There are obvious problems with it, but game looks decently fun to play. Alright, so last thing I'm going to do, because this video is long enough as is, but I want to add just a little tiny bit more, I'm going to cover that minute-long trailer that showed us what wasn't in the gameplay reveal. Okay, so a nice little hero sweeping shot that shows us our guy here. We see the same thing. We have the heroic hero shot from behind. Oh, this is interesting. Look over here. I didn't see this before. I didn't watch this. So look over at the left-hand side here. We see a bridge of some sort. We see a bridge that seems to be going from one area to the other. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the temples from Halo 2, but this is obviously just a strut. So it's possible that this is how you would get from one area to another. That's cool. I like that little detail that's put in there. I wonder how crazy they're going to be with that. So again, we see the same reveal there from the old trailer. We have a half-textured monkey man, but this is what I wanted to see as well. So this is obviously one of the cannons that we saw here, so they're probably just going through this same gameplay trailer. Yes, there are cruddy textures here, very much so. But the guy's obviously playing this a different way. I wonder what this is over here. It's some sort of platform. We already see some guys that are dead, so it's possible that he's been doing some work from a distance. And we have the energy shield, energy sword, jeez. That seems to be a bit more classically inspired. It doesn't seem to have the speed holes that we saw in the other versions of the game in Halo 4 and Halo 5. But it does seem to have the bit more of the shaped, serrated edges, not serrated, the shaped edges there, as you can see the way that the light is somehow reflecting off the plasma. And then Needler is there. That looks very classic, very classic looking Needler. No unnecessary bits that we saw in some of the other games. So I'm wondering if we see anything else that might be that wasn't revealed earlier, so we'll have to see. But he's getting him just as he does like a nice lunge, a powerful chief lunge, which we know he should have with the energy sword. We have the pilot. He's looking through the debris that we saw at the end of the trailer, the gameplay reveal trailer, not the trailer, the gameplay reveal video. Gameplay reveal video. Wow, this video is definitely going on for quite a bit. We have a shade, which we saw already. Oh, that's probably what that platform was. He probably destroyed the shade, which says to me that he's replaying this area. This seems to be the choice demo area that they were messing around in. So we'll see. There's the drop wall that we saw again, which I don't think blocked that. Oh, it did block the plasma grenade, which is great. Yeah, I'm interested to see why they didn't show off any of the other areas, and they're all just restricting it to this one place. It's the same level. We all know it's the same level by now. So this is interesting because I believe this is the first time I've seen a different ranked elite. It's a major. This is a major compared to a minor. So, and I do like the armor style of that as well. It seems to have touches of reach in it, and I believe some people claim that he does like a wart classic sound effect here. So the exaggerated death cries are probably in right now. Also, many people probably notice this as well, and this is slightly upsetting to me, is that there's no crazy amount of blood textures there. And I'm reminded of the first Halo game, and I'm wondering if that means that the game's going to be rated T again. I personally would prefer not to be the case, because like we want to bring it to a wider audience and stuff like that. You gotta stay true to yourself as well. You gotta stay true to yourself. I understand that before the first Halo game came out, it was rated T as well, but I think that was before the ESRB figured out what the flood looked like. He's going to jump on over, attack the Brute as well, who are also two-handing the Mangler. This time he chooses to pick up the fusion coil. And this is what I was talking about earlier. You saw how the blue fusion coil was one that could EMP certain things. This is a yellow coil, which is obviously more incendiary, which is obviously more blow-uppy. We have the Grunt flying through the air, where we've already established that the Brutes throw them in many other videos. And he's blowing them out of the air. Which, if you notice, the death animation seems to be... I'm wondering if it was exactly the same as the other games and all that. Have the classic arm-waving sort of death animation that you saw in the old Halo games. I don't know if Grunts were like that. I honestly never really paid attention to them. I'll have to go back and look to see. Where this time around, I believe that the Brute has... Yeah, some people have pointed out that the Brute seems to have been holding on to the VK-78 because you can see it falling. So Brute's using human weapons. It gives me a lot of Heretic vibes from Halo Reach Firefight. I kind of like that idea that the Brutes would be pragmatic. They wouldn't be drawn by like racial lines, like, ooh, I'm not touching it and stuff like that, not like the elites. They're going to say, I'm going to use whatever I feel like. So we have a grenade here, which is obviously Brute designed, And the reason I say that is because it looks like a style hand grenade. It looks like a potato masher, but it has the very classic brute sort of wrappings on the bottom of it. So it's a different type of grenade. I like all the varieties. It's a stunning grenade. It's a stun grenade. Man, that lightning looks very interesting. It looks very interesting. But it seems to work somewhat similar to the power drainer, except that it seems to freeze enemies, which is nice crowd control, especially if you're playing on higher difficulties. So, and this is what a lot of people were talking about, is the BR55, or something that looks very similar to it. And it does have that plasticky look. And to some people, it's really not impressive at all. It doesn't bother me so much because I see a lot of different type of weapon finishes and stuff like that. But let's take a look at the important parts of this again. Is we see that it's pretty faithful to the original BR55 design, specifically the triangles on the body of the gun, where you have the vents on the side of the body there. And once again, we have our side rail, once again proving that's the rule of 3. We saw 3 different types of weapons with side rails, which means that we're going to be seeing some side attachments to it. So I believe Halo Cannon pointed this out, that the flash hider is different, and that in the classic battle rifle it seems like the flash hider was that of a duckbill, something similar to that, but this time it's sort of going all around the gun. And once again, we have Misria armories showing off that they control the universe by having another Maker's Mark on there, which further seems to, I think, support the idea that there are going to be multiple different arms manufacturers in the game. Why else would you have your marks everywhere so that the player can see them? Which is it's nice. And again, it goes to show that there's more than one firearms manufacturer in the universe, despite the fact that I'm talking about the monopoly of all of them. Classic scope with 2 knobs on it. You gotta have 2 knobs, and the ammo counter is blue, which I think is really, which is very good. I mean, obviously the BR85 is orange, but the classic battle rifle is blue, as it should be, and it's nice and blocky in its design. I think that the forward guard there, the forward carrying rail there, is much beefier than it usually is. It has some meat on it, so this thing can survive a drop or 2, and it has like the oddly strange looking bolt. I always thought it was weird because it looks like the bolt is too small for the body, but whatever, it's minor gripes there. So once again, Chief is going to be using the rail, the grappling hook, which seems to lock on to the nearest bit of traversable terrain there, where he's not pointing at it directly, but it looks like it snaps to it as the nearby geometry says, okay, I can grab onto this, so it's not a miss. It's not a whiff. You don't have to worry about it. And as he's going towards this brute miner here, he takes a nice little melee at him. And look, there's another one. There's another proof mark. There's 3 proof marks on this. We have exactly 3 notifications that this rifle does indeed belong to Misria. Just in case you know it all fell apart and you have to find the pieces, you just know who it belongs to. I like it. We have the sticking of the grenade. This is a little bit different. I believe that this one goes off and it immediately puts into a death animation, so that's much better. And the last thing is we were looking at, see, this is a nice little thing here. We have a little bit of damage to the armor. It's a little bit superficial right now in terms of graphical quality, but it's nice to see that the Chief is going through some wear and tear. So I was saying, day and night cycle. I didn't even mention that, but I think everybody noticed that there's going to be a day and night cycle to the game. And I don't know if that's related to missions or if it's going to happen in the background. It's a nice touch. I think we all wanted to have an open world Halo at some point. But where we got the whole ring. I think that's shooting just a little bit too high, but I would like to see what the world looks like when it's nice and dark. Now that would be very interesting. I want to see what this ring looks like at night, where you can see all the lit portions, where I think there should be lit portions, where all the Forerunner machinery is. But that's a nice shot. That's a nice shot. Chief out for a Sunday drive. He's going to get some milk. He's going to get some cigarettes or something like that. He's just on the road. He's having a good time. Where there's a shot here that seems to be reminiscent of the, okay, that's a little strange, reminiscent of the Marine rescue thing here, and the sun's in a different position, where you have 3 guys there. It just seems that that's a little bit strange to me, though, that the guy doesn't seem to be gripping the weapon at all. Dude, Dude, what's going on here? This is a little bit strange. You got some explaining to do. He's not even gripping the triggers there. That is poor form, sir. When that thing goes off, it's going to give you a concussion. But I do like the fact that you can carry some... I like the fact that they're Marines, period, again. That's very cool. So, sailing through the air. Nice way to close it out. So, that's that. That's probably going to be like the 2.5 hour long video that I'm going to have to splice together. It's not bite-sized. It's pretty in-depth as far as I want to look into. And maybe there are some things that I missed. But I think that I got a decent little bit of things on there. And I'm hoping that if people have repeat viewings, maybe they're going to see some things that I missed, some details, and those are the things I like in the game. But everyone is saying how bad it looks right now, so I guess I'm contractually obligated or something like that to say that, yeah, there are major problems with that. But I'm more concerned in the end of the day with how a game plays. If graphics were the thing that I was worrying about, I'd never go back and play the games that I have here right now. I'm playing Kingdom Hearts right now. This is 2001, 2002, something like that. So, and the graphics were sharper, yes, texture's not all that great, but it's an older game. I really don't care about how a game looks as long as it plays nice. Like, I'm playing I Divine Cybermancy, which is a Source game, and Source games were never really sucker punches for that. So, if the game is fun, I'll play it. And it seemed interesting. Didn't look like the prettiest game out there, but it definitely looks like it's nice gameplay. So if I'm going to have fun with the game, that's really all that matters to me. And I want to see more. I do. I want to see more. I felt like I had my appetite whetted. I was satisfied. I wasn't blown away, but I'm interested to see a little bit more. So work hard. Give us some details, and please, oh please, clarify what we saw, guys. It would be nice to put this to bed. But anyways, like I said, that's my 3 hour and 47 minute video. I'm sure that's what it's going to be like, and check it next time. I guess when we have some more footage or some more details.